What's going on, everyone? Thanks for joining us today for the 1004 show. We are here with Danny Rubin, an author of Business Communication Skills. What's going on, Danny?
Hey Zach, what's going on, man?
Not much. So, what does an author of Business Communication Skills do all day?
All day long, I do a lot of things related to business communication, which includes writing books and also using my own techniques that I recommend to spread the word about what I do.
Very
And
cool.
that takes a lot of forms: emails, phone calls, in person networking, a huge amount of networking and building bridges, building relationships. I'm really big on the idea that you don't write a book to try to sell as many as you can in the first 6 months. I think that it's short-sighted, and if all you're trying to do is make a quick buck off a book, then don't even do it. Because what I'm trying to do, and I know what you're trying to do, is create something with longevity, something that will stick around and become a trusted resource for many years. And to do that, it requires relationships in the right places. So a lot of my time, I published my first book, it'd be 2 years ago this fall, and I just published my second one this past month in June. But a huge amount of my time is spent on relationship capital, developing relationships with strategic partners who can reach many more people than I could ever reach on my own. Those include the military, school systems, nonprofits, or other entities that reach large numbers of people on their own because they've developed market share and they have a platform. And I'm always looking to see, well, can my resource fill a need for your organization? And so often the answer is yes, because what I do and what I cover is that part of the school of hard knocks, so to speak, that we just don't address. We don't talk about writing very much. We don't talk about speaking very much. We don't talk about networking and these soft skills that are a huge part of our everyday, professionally or personally. And anytime I show up on the scene with my stuff, the answer is usually, oh, we could use that. And it's never, oh, we already do that. So I know I have a great niche that grows in demand every day. And so I'm on the grind and I don't take no for an answer.
Ooh, love it. Don't take no for an answer. We're talking with Danny Rubin,
And
author.
when I say real quick, when people say no, it's usually because they don't know what they're saying no to. They're like, oh, we don't need that, or oh, we're good, or oh, no, we're fine. But I know that if they actually get the material in their hands and see what I've made, it changes the conversation. It's happened many, many times. So I'm like, you just give me 5 minutes. I'll let the book do the talking.
So, interesting note on that. So, a sales funnel, or so if you understand a sales funnel, so a series of
Yeah,
steps to get a visitor to become paid
for
traffic.
sure.
I think it takes something like 5 to 7 positive interactions to get them to convert.
Yeah,
Some studies are now saying it takes up to 20 positive interactions.
don't tell me that.
They don't tell you that. But what's interesting in there is if you have a negative interaction, it takes 7 times the total amount of pieces in your funnel to get them back to go back to one. So it could take up to 35 positive interactions for them to then be like, oh, here's this. Here's what's very interesting, I think. After step two, after step two, 88% of people quit. So in most funnels, it's, hey, I met you at a networking event. And then this next step is, oh, here's my business card, right? Here's my business card.
Yeah,
Never follow up.
yeah.
And so most people quit there. Most people get the LinkedIn introduction, but don't follow up. And so it's just interesting that if you just play this game of longevity, good things will happen. We're talking with Danny Rubin.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Uh,
got to, that's right. You stay in the game. And I expect, as sort of a default, that people I reach out to initially will not want to return my emails or phone calls. They don't want to know what I have to say. I'm just another salesman with another product. I expect that the starting point is going to be, I need to chase you down a little bit. But again, I believe in what I'm doing. I believe in the value of what I've created. And I know how it can change people's lives if they let it in and learn from these techniques about how to communicate better. So because I know that I'm doing the work that's right, I fight through those moments
How do you
and
fight
I
through?
don't get offended. I don't get let down. I just drive through them, and then I can stand on the other side and say, all that effort was worth it because it got me into this door or that door or made somebody a believer, and now we're having this conversation, and that's what it's all for. And I know I'm going to get there with everybody eventually. It's just you just have to take it in stride.
How do you push through?
Like I said, I expect the default to be, we're good, or like, I'm really busy, or thanks, but, or we're okay, or I'm like, no, 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 you don't understand. And what's interesting for me in my space is there's this increasing push for soft skill education. It's kind of an amazing forces that are sort of colliding for me. Schools are stressing it, governments are stressing it, and employers are asking for it. They don't want to just hire somebody with technical chops. They want to hire somebody who can handle themselves in an office. And that's really what I focus on, is the little in-between subtleties of and nuances of interaction. So I know that I'm driving in the right direction, and even if they don't see it yet, I believe they will if I just get the material in their hands. And to that point,
So how do you get
and
the
I read
material?
this
How do
in
you?
Jonah Berger's book Contagious,
Mhm.
and it's a great tip. When you send books to people, always send at least 2 copies. Because what happens is, if I send a book to an influencer or somebody, what are they going to do? They're going to get it, they're going to stick it on their shelf. But if they get 2, they're going to give one to somebody else. And case in point, as I'm developing relationships with the school systems, I made a contact with a leader in the VOTech space, career tech ed space in Nevada, Las Vegas, and I sent him some copies of both books. I sent him 2 copies of each book. About an hour ago, I got a tweet from one of the teachers out in Nevada saying, "Thanks so much. We're including 2 of your books, 1 copy of each, in an auction that our VOTech Association is hosting." So by giving them the extra copies, it got a Twitter conversation started, and it's going to put the book in front of a lot of people at an auction. It's going to hopefully fall into the hands of another educator. If I had just sent 1 copy, the book would have sat on the guy's desk, and that would have been it. So it's those little moments, and you have to take them and say, yeah, it's one person in a giant sea of people, but these things add up, and it's just the little stuff that becomes big in the long run. You think about any large company that started, and I want to believe it all started just like this, just scrapping, selling out of your car, selling one at a time, like building fans at this grassroots level. And if the idea is good enough, it'll carry, but you have to get it going through grit.
I believe that 100%. I think a lot of times people see something on the surface, but they don't really get deep into what that business is really looking at. It's one of the reasons why we started one conference called Execute, where it's really the stories of resiliency from a business.
Yeah.
And the key is that we only talk about fluff and pretty things in business. A lot of times I think that we're using vanity metrics that don't matter. Like, why are we talking about dollars raised instead of dollars made? Right?
Yeah.
And I push back on all these people. I'm like, guys, like, it doesn't matter if you raise $1 billion, but if you can't make one,
Yeah.
it doesn't really work. And so you get a lot of people that want to think that dollars raised is such a significant number. And I'm like, if you actually focus on making more profits and making more money instead of trying to raise more money, you guys actually might have an even more successful business with that. So did Jonah Berger have that quote about sending 2 books, or is that yours?
No, I mean, that he said that in his book,
Yeah, it's
and
great.
I took that to heart, and I've done that.
So I've just doubled my book budget now because of you. I want to thank you for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I'll
Sorry about that,
send
but
you the bill.
it's the truth. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to the post office in the last 2 years, and I've shipped off packages. Another tip: if you're an author, use media mail from the U.S. Postal Service. You can send educational supplies. It's way cheaper than shipping regular mail, and they don't question it. If you tell them there's books in the package, that's it. And I've saved hundreds of dollars by shipping media
What's the
mail.
price difference?
Drastic. I mean, if I send 2 copies of a book in a bubble envelope anywhere in the country, it's like $3 flat. So regardless of distance, it's just based on the weight. So I think it's a huge cost savings, and any author out there or publisher should definitely do that when you're starting out, because if you're not willing to just start getting envelopes and shipping out books to people, physical copies, like You can send people PDFs all day long, but until they hold it in their hands and flip through it, it's not the same. And I've done this over probably 100, 200 times.
Do you write a
No
handwritten
lie.
letter with it too?
Huh?
Do you try and write a handwritten letter?
Oftentimes I put a letter that's typed up, or I'll put a little note on it, like a sticky note, or I'll do a typed out letter and I'll sign it with ink. Particularly if I want them to know, like, if someone else maybe asked me to send it to them or something and they don't know what this is or where it came from, I need context. So I always put notes when it seems to make sense. I always sign the book on the inside and make sure that it's special to them.
Mine.
Huh?
You did not sign mine.
Well, I must have been too busy for you that day, Zach, but next time I see you.
We're talking about
So, I mean, these are the little things, and it's like, it's so tedious, and like, you have to be, I don't think I'm unlike anybody else who's trying to start something from the ground up. Like,
no, I disagree with that. I think that you're doing little things that make huge impacts, and I think you're sticking with it, and you're doing it for a long time. And
yeah,
I believe that most people, I mean, I was looking on Reddit the other day, and someone was like, "Oh, my business has been open 2 weeks, and we're making no money. I think I'm not closing it." I'm like,
well, that's a classic example.
But that's so many people, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I know.
there is no doubt that you're gonna have ups and downs, right?
Yeah.
It's just trying to get through those and putting yourself around people that can help you get through those scenarios and thinking like, okay, if I do this, if I write this book, right, I could send a digital copy to someone, absolutely, and I can get it and I can track on my email that they opened it. Or I can spend $5 to send 2 of them and then maybe use media mail. So I'm going to spend $8 to try and get in front of someone,
Yeah.
and send them this copy of this book. And that $8 could turn into what?
Well, as an example, I've sent a lot of books in the mail. Sometimes it lands at a place with traction. Sometimes it doesn't. But in just a few small examples, I sent books to who ultimately became my book distributor. Now I'm in FedEx. I'm in Hudson News. I'm in other stores. That cost me $3. I sent books to a contact with the military. I'm making strides there. That costs $3. I sent books to a point person with the public education system. That's opening doors across the country. That costs $3. So it wasn't a huge investment of time or money. It was just a matter of saying, like, you got to throw a lot of stuff out there. Some of it's going to work, some of it won't. But I do want to say, I was thinking about this a second ago. Every decision that I've made has been driven by the market. I started a blog based on an idea that I thought was cool, which was looking for career tips in the daily news headlines. It's my own little idea.
What year was that?
That was 2012. It was 5 years ago this month. I wrote a blog post about it this month, actually, looking back on 5 years. And so I started with this idea that I liked, but then the market ultimately told me what it wanted, which was instruction on communication situations. So I pivoted. I love that word, and I think it's critical for entrepreneurs to pivot. Listen hard to the market and don't do what you love. Do what the market's at. I mean, do what you enjoy, but make sure that it aligns with the market needs.
How do you know that that's what the market wanted?
Because I track my data. I saw the traffic flow. I had 1 million views to my blog on the topics, writing guide topics, in like a year and a half. Like, it's unmistakable.
You had written a series of different posts, and the ones that had the most traction or the most views were things that were around that.
And this is a great example. I wrote topics on everything. I was talking about nutrition some days maybe, or finance or politics or whatever. I was just like finding little tips in the news and life hacks and money save. It was all over the map. And then I also wrote some stuff about writing guides. And I noticed in my Google Analytics that the writing guides had the most organic search response. People were looking for that stuff, and it was an aha moment, totally. And from then I just pivoted. I said, I'm going to just focus down on this topic that I do enjoy a lot, that I can see the audience wants. All the web traffic led to the idea of a book. And then from that book, now I'm in conversations with huge entities that really drive our country, schools. I mean, you talk about making a significant impact on the country. Teach a young person. Mm-hmm. For me, that's the ultimate. If I could teach somebody at 15, 16 years old how to approach business and how to be a good person in the business world and be curious of others and write well and speak well, you can change somebody's whole life, and that in turn changes our economy.
Yeah.
So for me, I just kept following the interest, And in doing so, I'm always making sure that I'm providing something that the audience is looking for. And I'm not just trying to jam an idea like a round peg into a square hole. To me, it's round peg into a round hole all the time. It's just a matter of overcoming people's initial, like, I don't know, just because it's new. But I know that I'm right because the data proves it.
I've been using the term that it's similar to a bell curve if you really think about that. So you're just trying to find those people at the right time, and
Yeah.
how a bell curve is basically four different segments of a market, I guess, and some of them are early adopters and some of them aren't, and just keep trying to find the early adopters,
Yeah,
and the
I
other people
want
will
exactly. And
will
if
shift
I
over.
want to hit that bell curve and I think the opportunity is there. I know it's there. I'm so far into this game now, 5 years in, that there's no turning back. And I'm just yeah, the stages get bigger, the audiences get more significant, and it's just a process. In my blog I wrote about this month, I said, okay, year one, I'm writing a blog for myself on a topic I think is cool. Year five, I'm in FedEx office. If you just remove the middle years and say A to B, like it makes no sense. That's why process is so important and understanding how you get to these places. And I still feel like I'm at the very beginning of my own career with this. But it's been a total evolution because I just keep listening to the audience. What do you want? What do you need? Where are you vulnerable?
Hmm.
That's where I want to step in.
Talking with Danny Rubin, he's the author of Wait, How Do I Write This Email? And also new author of Wait, How Do I Promote My Business?
Yeah.
Are those the same customer?
No. Well, yes and no. I'm learning who this audience is. It's interesting. Just straight up out in the real world, no. They're different audiences. It's the first book is for people who are seeking jobs and how to write well to get a job. And the second book is how to write well to grow a business or to promote the business. So if it's just out there in retail space, they are different animals. But in a educational setting, there's a lot of synergy. A lot of schools and programs want to teach both. They want to teach career readiness and they want to teach entrepreneurship. So I'm finding a soft landing in some classrooms and some other programs that work inside classrooms that need both of these tools because they want to teach students both. And like I said, I'm happy to sell books in stores or at speaking engagements. But for me, the big goal, the end goal for me is to become a trusted resource in schools and large institutions that educate young people because it has just from a business perspective, it has a chance to scale. And I think it has the most meaning because you can reach people at a young age.
How do you track that?
How do I track what
That
exactly?
goal of yours?
Well, I mean, I think it's one of the biggest things I think is so critical, whatever business you're in, is you have to understand the landscape that you're operating within. You have to know the players in your space, how the pieces fit, who talks to whom, and how they all work together and collaborate. For me, it's still an education on how these large institutions like the educational system or the military, how they work, how they operate. So every day I'm like, okay, what do I need to do today to further myself into this space? Who do I need to talk to? What do I need to learn or read? A great way, and I just wrote about this in my newsletter this past week, is I make a series of hashtags related to a particular industry. Like for me, it's in the career and tech ed space. So I have a series of hashtags that space uses, and I use TweetDeck, and I just flip through it a couple times a day, and I just see what people are talking about, what they're blogging about, the issues that are central to that space, what they're worried about, what they're struggling with, where the opportunities lie, who the players are, who's tweeting a lot. That stuff is really important to me because I need to know how these pieces fit. I want to become part of that landscape. And right now I'm kind of on the outside looking in, and I need to become on the inside to say, oh yeah, we work with Danny, we know what he does, he has great stuff, because it's such a massive operation, 50 states and thousands of school systems. So that's a huge part for me. Like that's how I track it, is like I'm just like trying to follow it like a hawk and understand this world so that I could play within it.
So you're 5 years into this journey. You have a media background. We don't need to talk about that. You're experienced in that. You come from a
Yeah.
family of experienced media folks.
Yeah.
You have degrees and you can write and all that stuff. But it's 5 years ago, and so
Yeah.
you start this blog. At the point, it was News to Live By. What's the
Yeah.
blog?
Yeah.
What's the website now?
DannyHRubin.com.
What's the H for?
My middle name,
Yeah, but what is it?
Hyman.
Hyman. There you go.
Hyman. It's my great grandfather.
So DannyHRubin.com. You've converted that at some point. That's probably irrelevant in the storytelling.
Yeah, a couple years ago I switched it over.
But you go from blog author, if you will. When did you start writing the book? In that time frame.
I started writing it in 2013 or early 2014.
Okay, so at least 18 to 24 months.
Oh yeah, I was just blogging and doing my thing for about 18 months.
Had something significant happened in that time frame for you to recognize that you might be able to get into a bigger world? Because I know at some point you got something on Huffington Post, or there was something big in there, and was that kind of the thing that led you to this?
I had a piece that went viral on Huffington Post called 25 Things You Should Know by Age 25. But
That's right.
and that sort of exposed me to sort of the bigger web landscape, and I did an ebook on that topic just to kind of play around with publishing. But really the aha moment was observing that the web traffic on my site was clearly shouting at me saying, we need writing instruction. We are struggling out there on the internet. We don't know what to do. We're coming to your website because you're writing about it. And what's cool about it is it was only for me to find. It was my data. It was my Google Analytics account. Nobody else cared about this topic. Nobody else was focused on it. And I'm like, it was like my moment. And if I just let it go by, I would have missed everything I've been working for.
This is like your shining moment.
So, I mean, it was the opportunity was there for me and only for me. And I loved that. You know, what I love the most about what I'm doing is I have no real competition for what I'm doing, not in an egotistical way. It's just that, like, I've been working so hard at this one particular unique sort of niche, and no one else really wants to operate there, and that's fine with me. I love that I'm doing what my unique value to the world. I'm offering it up, and I think if we all work like crazy on what we love to do, then we find ourselves in our own category for the rest of our career, because we're only following ourselves, no one else. And that allows me to find my own space at every conference, at every bookstore. There's a lot of books, a lot of speakers, but no one's doing my thing, and that's fine. I don't want to do what they're doing. I only want to do what I'm doing. And the more I work on what I love, the more I define myself and my brand.
That's very powerful. Do the things that you love.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you get that article on Huffington Post. You decide several months into it that's there. You say that your users, your visitors are screaming at you that they want something. Like,
Silently screaming.
Like, what kind of numbers are we talking about? Hundreds, thousands? Like what?
No, I had like 1.5 million views to my blog, and the majority when I decided to make this decision to go out and write a book, the majority of the traffic was organic, and it was directed at posts I had written about networking guides and job search writing.
50%?
Sorry?
More than 50% of those people were looking for those guides
Oh
and
yeah.
stuff like that?
It's like, you know, I spent the first year plus writing on random topics, and then I started focusing on these writing and communications topics. And when I would rank my posts and to look at them like top 100 or top 150, 200, whatever, all the writing ones came to the top, and all these random ones just fell to the bottom because they're not searchable. They weren't relevant day
They're
after
also probably
day.
not evergreen.
No, they're not. They weren't evergreen, and they weren't solving a problem that persisted that people were searching for. So if I just looked at my Google Analytics results, I would say the stuff at the top is what resonates most, and that's where I need to focus my energies. There's a clear need there, and I needed to pivot, so I did.
Love it.
And it continues to bear fruit, but it's not like I decided to make that pivot and the next day I won the lottery. You know, it's a long slog, but I really enjoy the work. It's meaningful to me, and I see the potential, so I just keep climbing.
I see a lot of similarities in what you're doing to what I'm doing, you know, caring about it, wanting to do that, you know, long piece.
Totally.
I tell people I'm not trying to hit a home run. I'm trying to make the Hall of Fame. And the reason I say that is because the Hall of Fame is a very long term goal, if you will, right? Most people that make the Hall of Fame didn't do one thing well once, they did it for a very long
You have
time,
to. You have
right?
to.
And so I tell people, I'm just like, look, I'm glad I'm having some of this early success. It's great. But I need to create something that's going to be there for a very long time. And
That's
my
right.
evolution has changed a lot. Your evolution has changed. Like the things that you were doing before are different than the things that you're doing now. But you're starting to see a path that isn't as much like this, but it is a lot more like this. And
Yeah.
it's powerful. And I think it takes a very long time to figure out what that direct path is.
Yeah.
And to me, it's not really what I thought it was. And that's
I'm
okay
the same.
because by going through all that, I'm actually able to help even more people, which is very cool.
Yeah. Well, I think the key is you just got to get started, got to get your hands dirty, and you have to just experiment. You got to throw it. You just got to see what works and what has traction. You can't stand on the sidelines trying to make this perfect product. Just start with somewhere and just keep messing with it. I mean, I'm still messing with it. We talk a lot about online courses and funnels and automation, and that stuff is really hard. And it's the same thing, same process. You got to just stay in there, keep trying stuff, get comfortable with the tools, know what you're doing, and kind of get to a point where you have some confidence about what you're doing, and you're not always so like buried in like all this software, but you can start to see a path. And you got to just push through these things. It sucks. Like it really sucks sometimes. Like why is there not a light at this tunnel sooner? Like but you're being tested all the time.
You don't see the light?
Well, I do. I mean, and with like some of the digital stuff, I see where I want to be, but
Right.
sometimes I'm like, can it get there sooner, please? Like, let's just start to see, just like we talk about seeing something predictable every day that kind of runs itself. It's this magical idea that businesses can run themselves, but to get to that point, it takes a tremendous amount of skill and time and trial and error to make it work like that, so it's performing.
And one of my favorite things is these people who now run ads that basically are selling get rich quick schemes, if you will. You see
Yeah.
them all over the place now, and you could just tell that they likely don't have the experience in what they're doing, and they're basically lying. And so they're going after that short-term goal, and it's just like, look, like you guys can continue to think that that's going to work, but play the long game, and it will be good. When you think about putting together like your author page on Amazon or your book page on your website, like how thorough are you going on that and changing it, or is that something that is pretty much the standard and you tweak very rarely?
No, actually, I just updated my About Me page on my website because in my new book, I was talking about what an effective About Me page is, and I needed to even bring mine along because I've changed my thinking on what it should contain, and I think it should start to tell the story about how you arrived at what you do, why you're passionate about what you do. It shouldn't just be like a biographical. It should have some emotion to it. It should have a bit of a narrative to it. And so I did just revise mine so that it aligns with what I'm saying in the book because, yeah, my philosophy continues to evolve, but I believe that the best communicators know how to tell stories. They know how to draw on emotion. They know how to leave a memorable impression. And that should happen at every page of your website or wherever you're talking about yourself. Should always try to include some sort of narrative or backstory because it's engaging and people don't forget it. So I'm always working on my own stuff, refining it. And like I've said to you before, anything that I can do for one person in this field that I'm in, I want to help many people. So the ways to do that are through books, speaking, and courses. Otherwise, you're just 1 hour at a time with the person in front of you. And I want to reach as many people as I can and have other people teaching what I'm recommending in their own classrooms or their own spaces so that it spreads the message. And the way to do it is you have to make the material. You got to make it real.
Yeah.
And that part is hard, but once it's real, then you can do all kinds of cool stuff. But I will caution anybody who wants to write a book or make anything is you have to be so careful in the creation process. You cannot skip a step. You can't rush anything. If it takes an extra week to get something right, then take that extra week because You do not want to put something out there that is not your absolute best. The market will sniff it out immediately, and
Especially
it
something
won't
like
be.
that that's not a blog post.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to commit to writing a book, it's got to be the absolute best thing you could ever do.
How long
You
did the
you
first
have
one take?
nothing when it's done. You have nothing left, and because if anything less than that, and it's just not going to work. I knew when I was writing this first book, I was like, this has to be so good that it passes the eye test and the smell test and any kind of test at any level, local, state, national, anywhere it goes. It's got to just do work for me. It's got to win people over. And if it doesn't do that at any level, then I did not do my best work. And so far, I believe that wherever that book goes, it wins people over, low and high. And I know that's because I spent so much time. That book took 18 months. I worked with professionals to have to make it look nice, and I just crushed myself on that manuscript and on the editing, and I gave it everything I have.
What about book two? How long?
Same deal, but it took about a year. It took 6 months less because I had the process down. I knew
So
who
does
to
book
work with.
three take 6 months?
No, no, that's going to take another year probably.
Is there a third book?
Yeah,
Do you
it's
want
going
to?
to be a writing guide for leaders,
Okay, very
which
cool.
follows a logical progression. Book one is for a job seeker, book two is for in the guts of a business, and book three is for managers.
Very smart. And I know you and I have both met some good and bad leaders throughout the years. Um,
Yeah, a few.
no, no need to name anyone there. You've given me a lot of things to do. You've doubled my budget, my expense budget for
Yeah,
buying books. Thank you for that. I now have to go
yeah,
rewrite my author page. Thank you for that. Danny
yeah. That's the
Rubin,
problem. You come around me and I give you
I
homework. You got to be
know.
careful.
It's terrible. I appreciate your time, Danny Rubin. You guys can check
Thanks,
him out
Zach.
at
Thank
Danny
you as
H. Rubin
always.
all the time. DannyHRubin.com is the website. Check out Wait, How Do I Write This Email, book number 1. And number 2 is Wait, How Do I Promote My Business? And number 3, I'm guessing is going to be called Wait, How Do I Become a Leader? I don't know. We'll see.
Something like that.
Coming soon to a bookstore or Amazon near you. DannyHRubin.com. Appreciate your time and continued success.
Thanks, buddy.
See you soon.